Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We get a lot of questions about perfectionism and autism, and today we're taking a deep dive into that very connection.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area.
We found this blog post called The Perfectionist Autistic, a double-edged sword.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
It's from the Cheap ABA website.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So we thought this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of unpack it all
Yeah, definitely.
and, really explore the potential benefits and the drawbacks of perfectionism
Hmm,
and how maybe we can all learn to manage those tendencies a little
that's
better.
awesome.
So the blog post jumps right in and talks about why autistic people might be more prone to perfectionism in the first place.
Okay.
And one of the things that it points to is that autistic individuals tend to set these really high standards,
Right.
not just for themselves, but a lot of times for other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. And to really understand that we have to look at kind of the root of those high standards.
Hmm.
Often it comes down to this fear of failure, which can be so intense for autistic individuals. It's like
Yeah.
every mistake just feels amplified.
Oh, yeah.
It creates this immense pressure to get everything exactly right.
It's like when you're working on some kind of project and you make even like the tiniest error,
Yeah.
it feels like the end of the world.
Mm,
You just want to like erase it and start over,
totally.
even if it's something that like nobody else would even notice.
I know exactly what you mean.
The blog also talks about something called black and white thinking
Yeah.
as like a contributing factor here.
Okay.
And I thought that was really interesting. It's like
Yeah,
it can be really hard to see shades of gray.
for sure.
It's either all or nothing, perfect or complete failure.
Yeah,
And that can lead to this very rigid approach to achievement.
absolutely.
So if you're thinking in those black and white terms, making a mistake isn't just a little setback, it's like a total catastrophe.
Yeah, it's like the world is divided into success and failure with nothing in between.
Yeah.
And that kind of thinking is just so draining. It makes it so much harder to learn from your mistakes.
Definitely. And there was one thing the blog brought up that I hadn't really considered before,
What's that?
and that was how sensory sensitivities come into play.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how does that all fit in?
That's a really interesting connection.
Mhm.
For a lot of autistic individuals, sensory input can just be completely overwhelming. You think
Oh,
about like bright lights or loud noises, even certain textures.
yeah.
Those can be super painful
Yeah.
or just trigger sensory overload.
Hmm.
And so the need for control and order, which often shows up as perfectionism,
Right.
can actually be a way to kind of manage those sensory experiences.
Oh, so it's like
Yeah.
creating a predictable environment to minimize the chances of that sensory overload.
Exactly. It's like finding a way to regulate sensory input and create the sense of calm
Yeah.
in the middle of all that potential for overwhelming sensations.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like creating this safe space where everything is just so, and that can help minimize the sensory chaos.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that. So it's almost like having all your books arranged by color or having to eat your food in a specific order.
Yeah.
Those little routines
Right.
that can help create some peace and predictability.
Exactly.
But the blog post is also saying that those coping mechanisms can sometimes tip over into like problematic perfectionism.
Right. And that's where we start to see the downsides.
Okay.
The blog post talks about the impact perfectionism can have on autistic adults,
Hmm.
and it's not always pretty.
Yeah.
We're talking anxiety, depression, even procrastination, the whole shebang.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see how that pressure to be perfect could lead to those kinds of struggles.
It's often a vicious cycle. Like
Yeah.
that fear of failure we were talking about
Right.
can lead to procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
You're so worried about messing up that you just avoid starting the task altogether.
Hmm.
But then that just reinforces this negative self-perception and
Mm.
actually ramps up the anxiety even more. Ugh. I know that feeling so well.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a big presentation coming up,
Yeah.
you're so scared of messing it up that you just keep putting off practicing.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, you end up feeling even worse because you're behind and the anxiety just spirals.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
And the blog post also highlights like the social impact of perfectionism.
Right.
It can lead to isolation
Yeah.
because you're afraid of not meeting those social expectations
Mhm.
or like feeling pressure to appear perfect.
For sure.
And it's like you're constantly worried about being judged or coming across as awkward.
Yeah.
So you just end up withdrawing from social situations altogether.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of autistic people, there's also that pressure to mask your autistic traits,
Oh, totally.
which can be incredibly draining.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like you're wearing a costume all the time, trying to be someone you're not,
Yeah,
just to avoid judgment or negative reactions.
right.
But that takes such a toll on your mental well-being. Absolutely, and when you combine that with the pressure to succeed in other areas of life,
Yeah.
it's no surprise that burnout becomes a major concern.
Hmm. Okay, so the blog post offers some strategies for breaking free from this perfectionism trap.
It does.
What are some of those things that we can do to loosen the grip of perfectionism and find a healthier balance?
Well, the first step is cultivating self-compassion.
Okay.
It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you'd offer a friend,
Yeah.
recognizing that everybody makes mistakes
Mm.
and that you're worthy of love and acceptance,
Yeah.
imperfections, and all.
That sounds so much easier said than done.
I know, right?
How do you actually practice self-compassion?
Right.
Especially when that inner critic is so loud.
It definitely takes time and practice,
Yeah.
but the blog post has some great starting points.
Okay.
One really powerful technique is journaling.
Okay.
Taking some time each day to write down your thoughts and feelings, and noticing any negative self-talk and consciously trying to reframe it with kindness and understanding.
So instead of saying, I messed that up,
Yeah.
I'm so stupid,
Right.
you might try something like,
Yeah,
okay, I made a mistake, but everyone makes mistakes.
exactly.
What can I learn from this?
It's about shifting from self-criticism to self-support.
Okay.
Another strategy is using affirmations.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
Is that like looking in the mirror and saying, I am strong, I am capable?
Exactly. It might feel a little awkward at first,
Yeah.
but the idea is to replace those negative thoughts with positive ones,
Mm-hmm.
gradually shifting your self-perception.
Okay.
The blog post also emphasizes the importance of challenging those negative thoughts directly.
Okay.
When you catch yourself spiraling into self-criticism,
Mhm.
stop and ask yourself,
Yeah.
is this thought helpful?
Oh,
Is it even true?
right.
What evidence do I have to support it?
It's like putting those negative thoughts on trial
Right.
and demanding that they present some hard evidence.
Exactly. And then oftentimes when we examine those thoughts closely,
Yeah.
we realize they're based on fear and distorted perceptions.
So instead of getting caught up in, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
you might realize, hey, I'm actually pretty skilled at this.
Right.
And I'm learning and growing all the time.
Now you're talking, that's the power of reframing those negative thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Along with all of this, the blog post emphasizes the importance of setting realistic goals.
Okay.
Instead of aiming for perfection, focus on progress.
Mm-hmm.
Break down large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right.
And celebrate those small wins along the way.
I love that it's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One
Yeah.
bite at a time.
Exactly. Breaking things down makes them seem much less daunting.
And speaking of celebrating small wins,
Yeah,
that's where the self-compassion comes in again.
it does.
Acknowledge your efforts and celebrate your progress no matter how small.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in that all-or-nothing mindset.
For sure.
But acknowledging those little victories can be incredibly motivating.
Absolutely.
Another tip the blog post mentions is embracing imperfection.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And it can be tough,
Yeah.
but it's essential.
Okay.
It's about accepting that mistakes are a natural part of life and learning.
Mm.
In fact, they can be valuable opportunities for growth.
Easier said than done, right?
I know.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
Mistakes are how we learn and evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
Mhm.
we can start to see them as stepping stones
Right.
on the path to something bigger.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point from the blog post.
Okay.
Seeking professional help
Okay.
when needed.
Right?
An autism-informed therapist
Yeah.
can be such a valuable resource,
Absolutely.
providing those personalized strategies and support
Mm.
in managing perfectionism.
I think sometimes there can be a stigma around seeking therapy,
Yeah, for sure.
but it really can be life-changing. Having someone to talk to who understands the unique challenges of autism and perfectionism can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. They can help you develop those coping mechanisms,
Right.
challenge those negative thought patterns we talked about,
Yeah.
and build a stronger sense of self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And don't underestimate the power of support groups either.
Oh, yeah.
Connecting with other autistic individuals
Yeah.
who understand your experiences
Yeah.
can provide a sense of validation and belonging.
Right.
It's so important.
It's like having a tribe of people who just get it.
Yeah.
You can share your struggles, celebrate your wins, and learn from each other's experiences.
Exactly.
It's really amazing how just understanding the roots of these tendencies
Yeah.
can empower you to move forward in a more positive way.
It really is. And that's something that the blog post highlights as well.
Okay.
You know, understanding the link between perfectionism and autism,
Yeah.
it isn't about labeling it as good or bad, but about recognizing that these tendencies often stem from deeply rooted anxieties and a desire for control
Yeah.
in a world that can often feel overwhelming.
It's like once you understand where these behaviors are coming from, you can start to develop those more effective strategies
Right.
for managing them.
Exactly. It's about learning to be kinder to yourself.
Yeah.
Challenge those negative thoughts and embrace the beauty of imperfection.
I love that.
Remember, perfection is an illusion.
Yeah.
It's a standard that no one can truly achieve, and striving for it can lead to exhaustion, burnout, and a diminished sense of self-worth.
So what would you say is like the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
I think it's this.
Okay.
Understanding your own unique relationship with perfectionism and how it connects to your experience as an autistic individual,
Right.
that can be incredibly empowering.
Okay.
It allows you to approach these tendencies with self-awareness and compassion,
Yeah.
finding strategies that work for you, and celebrating the progress you make along the way.
This has been such a valuable deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
And I hope it's given our listeners some helpful insights
I hope so.
into the complexities of perfectionism and autism.
Me too.
You're not alone in this journey.
Remember to be kind to yourself, celebrate your progress,
Yeah.
and keep exploring. There's so much to discover about yourself and the world around you.
That's a great place to end it. I think thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody.